Welcome to the podcast AI in Qualitative Research. Lisa and Tom are off on a well-deserved holiday, so this episode is a bit different. With me is Dr. Susanne Friese, pioneer and thought leader on using AI in qualitative research. And in this episode, we will look back on 2024 in a fireside chat. Welcome, Dr. Susanne. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for joining me from, looks very nice in your background.
It's turning wintry, yes, but it's your place is nice too. So we're both cozy at fires, so nothing to stand in the way for a nice chat, I think. Well,
Yeah.
when we dive straight in, looking back on 2024, what springs to mind on your side?
I know, of course, that we were talking, and I was also thinking back, and I actually want to go one step back further, because about 2 years ago, I did a podcast with Christina Silver. And back then I was a bit on a different path still, but we ended the podcast with an outlook to the future. And that was also about AI. And ChatGPT was just out, and I might have written a poem with it or something. I don't know, but we mainly talked still about machine learning and machine learning integration in existing Cactus programs, so computer-aided qualitative data analysis software. And I was thinking, the ML features weren't really, really helpful, but I was hoping for the future that they would become a bit smarter and that they would help us coding, so that we, still, I was already talking about interaction, saying that we start coding and then the artificial intelligence or smart features, whatever, they would kind of learn from what we did and then help us to code the rest of the data. And I also was saying that, well, we still probably need to check that. We cannot just let the machine do its thing. So that was where we were 2 years ago. Well, I'm still at that stage where we are, we have to interact with the machine, and it's not that the machine takes over. But since then, of course, I've learned a lot, and what I realized early on was when actually generative AI came out and was built in first application. So that was at the, we're talking 2023 now. The coding part is not really where the strength is of these AI. So of the generative AI, we have to kind of look at different ways. And well, we need a different tool. And that first idea then started in 2023. Now, what happened in 2024? Well, a year ago, around this time of the year, I was really hoping we had the beta version. As I'm not a techie, I needed to cooperate with some technical partners. And basically what happened a year ago, that they told me, well, we tried to put everything together and everything was kind of falling apart. The conversation already started, and also the webinars I have been doing on the emerging generative AI features that came out, and I was listening to people, their concerns, which were bias with artificial intelligence, hallucination, privacy concerns. So all of those ethical issues. So I kind of, while waiting for some tool to appear, I was diving into those topics and started to write blogs about it, started to do some webinars about it. So that time was actually not wasted. I didn't really have a tool in my hands yet, but
it's been a roller coaster, so to speak.
It has been a roller coaster. But while, on the positive note, I was, building up a name, and I'm recognized now as, a thought leader in AI-qualitative research, and that accumulated in a very successful presentation or webinar in November with 1,300 people signing up, and that topic was the ethical, responsible use of AI. So that is kind of what I've been building in 2024, a way of how to utilize AI also in a responsible manner.
You've come a long way in your thought process also in the last 2 years, from that interview with Christine Silver, where your views on the future might be a bit different than where we are now, but you kind of evolved with that. Were you always so more like one step ahead of what technology could offer?
I'm not sure about that. I think I am, I think there's more than technology can offer that we have figured out yet. But I think I'm a step ahead of a lot of people.
But it's in the
That
usage then, like you said, it's
again,
more in the ethical use of how to put in motion that power that we have, that AI offers.
yeah, I think it takes a lot of practice and trying out things and experimenting. And what I observed is that a lot of people, they kind of know something is brewing, and they are at the sideline of things. They're kind of observing. They attend my webinars, but then nothing, much is happening. Also in terms of, now we do have a tool. I mean, that is, also one of the great outcome of 2024, that at the end of the year we also launched then Q Insights. But I see a lot of people just simply watching, and that's why I said I because I'm of course constantly involved in that, and reading up on it, and reading newsletters and following the discussions that is going on, and that's why I said I think I'm ahead of a lot of people. I think there's still a lot more to discover, but it's sometimes it's just very interesting when you talk to people, and it's not to belittle them, but it's kind of just showing the where we are, and that a lot of people, that when you're in the middle of it, that you think everybody kind of should know about this and how it works. But recently I talked to somebody, and I kind of just said LLM, and he's like, oh, stop, what's an LLM? And I was thinking by now everybody knows that LLM stands for large language models. There's a lot of non-knowledge out there. There's still a lot of need to train
Yeah.
people
Yeah, a
to
lot is
get.
happening in the field, of course, and when you're so deep in it as you are, you might take things for granted as knowledge, but it's not for everybody. That it's so obvious. Yeah, but you are in contact with quite a lot of people, because you teach, and you teach online, but you also teach in person. So do you get feedback from students that help you along in this way? Do you learn from their responses?
Well, a lot. Uh, um, because now we do have a tool. People can try it out, because one, I mean, people are following me. They know that I advocate for the no coding approach, but not no coding in terms of computer coding, but in qualitative analysis. What people have been doing the last 30, 40 years is, and especially with the event of Cactus, that we attach keywords to data, and then the computer helps us to retrieve those data. And one of the path is using AI to help people along with the coding process. So that's where I was 2 years ago, that where I was thinking that this is where it might come in handy, and where I now actually say, well, now the AI is not very good in coding, but it's very good in other things. And that means, well, we can skip the whole stage of coding. I'm getting to your teaching question, or like the reaction. But this is where I think also I'm ahead of people with experimenting, because they have been coding all there. It's on all those textbooks
Yeah,
that, oh, that's what we do. And
yeah,
now I'm coming, or I'm also having a tool and said, well, you simply ask questions. You can skip that entire stage of coding.
yeah,
And people feel a bit lost, and they kind of
yeah,
yearn that structure, that coding system,
yeah,
get them. And that was a very interesting observation, that people then suddenly associate a coding system which is tangible with something that's more objective, or that even has some objective truths, and it makes the whole research process transparent and replicable for other people. And they completely forget that the whole coding system is also very subjective. I mean, you can run intercode reliability. But if you do that a month later, you might get different results. So it's not as objective that it suddenly appears to be. Yeah, it is a new, it is, well, it's an innovation. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It's a revolution. Actually, it's when you can skip the coding that everybody has been taught all their lives. It might be a bit of a quantum leap for a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they ask, are there any articles that describe how that works? And well, some people are working on it right now as we speak. We kind of do better a book. We just got the contract or signed a contract with Sage Publication. But if it works well, the book comes out in 2026. So we have gathered I think about 10 to 12 authors, and it's going to be an interesting book on various ideas and how we can implement AI in qualitative research. Articles, so hopefully they will come out, throughout 2025. But till we get a book out, it's always going to be taking some time.
Yeah, the field is almost moving faster than the books can be produced at the moment.
That's for sure. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the creative part of AI. That is a topic a lot of listeners are wondering about.
AI whispers, let's dive in. Qualitative flow, leading the way. Discover the tales in a digital sway.
Welcome back to our part 2 of our Fireplace Chat. When you talk about coding and that it's not as consistent as people might think, there's also an opinion that AI doesn't give consistent enough answers when you put it to work in qualitative research. So when you ask a question, you ask it again, you get different results. How is your view on that?
Yeah, that's a common critique point, that people also don't use it as an argument, or we can't use it, it's always giving us inconsistent results. But there are several aspects to it. And then one I can relate to teaching again. I think in order to understand how we can use AI efficiently, we also need to understand a little bit about it. We don't need to become techies. We don't need to do, coding in Python and all of that. I don't know how to do that, so I leave that up to the tech people. But it still helps to get a bit of an understanding of how that they are, what an LLM is and how it kind of works. And everybody said, yeah, it's all probabilistic. It's all statistics that's behind it. It's not, and of course it can't think, and it is a machine who produces the answer based on some algorithm that's behind it. But in order for the answers not to be so bland, or that it's actually a built-in feature that the AI is not always picking the most likely word that follows another word, but there is some variation. That's why we do get variation in the answer. So in that sense, it's a built-in feature, and it's nothing to do with the generative AI per se, but it's like how the humans have built it. And there's a lot of more to say about how humans have built it. A lot of people also just equate ChatGPT with the new technology. And after all, there's Claude. Well, what Claude? Well, or Anthropic, or what's who is that and what is that? And of course, as soon as people try out things, they know about Perplexity, they know about Claude, they know about Llama, and they know about, and if people tell people there's hundreds of different models, they're very surprised because they think there's ChatGPT. Well, ChatGPT is OpenAI and with Microsoft, and there's also different models behind ChatGPT. So it's all, we need to educate people also about those things, and that Claude is answering differently because there's a different system prompt behind it. So there's lots of human intervention also in how these LLMs work. And and if you try one, it doesn't mean you get another. But we're talking about the inconsistent answers. So one is like, okay, it's built in the way the algorithm are programmed, but also in the way the LLMs are tuned or fine-tuned by humans. That's another one, and it's actually a desirable feature. But if you think about it as a desirable feature, then how do we make use of that feature? Because having it coming up or being creative, that means you can ask it for 5 different perspectives. You can make very productive use of those creative answers. And then there's also another technical thing that people are oftentimes not aware of, that ChatGPT or Claude or any of these models you can directly access through a browser interface work very differently than a purpose-built app. And by now there are hundreds of those apps. But as an app that works with data that somebody uploads, in most cases will have a RAG system in place. That means retrieval augmented analysis. And with that, the answer is in any case only focused on the data. Based on my experience with teaching with the same data set, and sometimes in German, sometimes in English. So I've been asking a lot of times the same questions in demonstrating the tool. Yeah, if you do that 20 times, you know that the answers, the wording might be slightly different. It's not that it gives me completely different answers all the time.
The idea is still the same. Yeah.
And that's why people need to practice and not just kind of saying, oh, it gives me a different answer. Of course, if you only have try it 2 times and you get a slightly different answer. So, well, if you do it 20 times, you get a bit of a feeling that the answers are maybe not that different. Also, we humans won't give the same answer. If we do that same conversation in 2 weeks' time, you might ask me different questions, or you might ask the same question, but I give you a slightly different perspectives on the same story.
Yeah.
But we are not consistent either. So it's
I
actually a more human trait. Yeah.
Yes, I know that I won't be that consistent at all. Yes. So that also gets a lot of has happened in the 2 years since you had that interview with Christine Silver, but you were already then talking about the human being in the lead, and AI is more of an intelligent assistant doing more of the most of the work. With that, what you're telling now is basically still keeping the human in the forefront and in control of what the AI is doing.
Well, that always has been my position. A big concern of people have that black box. I mean, I'm not so concerned about how AI internally is processing data and whatever it does with its neural networks, because I understand, well, I'm not sure what's happening in my brain right now. I mean, which synapses are fired and not, and in order to produce my answer, because sometimes I think people also compare apples with pears, because then they're like, oh, it's all a black box. We don't know what's happening. And so, well, do you know what's happening in your brain? We don't know that either. Yeah. If we now talk, if you don't understand my answer, you can ask me a question and I can clarify. And if I get something back from an AI, which I think, might be slightly off, or I don't understand, or I want more detail, well, and I can interact with it and I can ask about it. So that's why I think the magic or the benefit actually is not the magic, but it's the interaction between the human and the AI. And what we also have seen talking about 2024 is, if you observe conversation, in my case is mostly on LinkedIn, that whole bubble, you can press a button and the AI will do something for you and you get an answer. So that bubble is so bursting that people are coming to that point. We need that human interaction. We cannot just let the AI at their own devices, because they realize that the quality of the answers is not very good.
Let's hold that thought. When we come back, we talk about how we can utilize an AI assistant to help us analyze data.
AI whispers, let's dive in. Qualitative flow, leading the way. Discover the tales in the digital.
Welcome back. Reading your blog and listening to your podcast. What I understand is that analyzing data is almost like interviewing your data.
Yeah, you could think about in that way. I'm not sure whether you can have an interview guide. I mean, you have your research question, you kind of know what you're looking for. But
you need to know your data at least what's in there. You need to be familiar with the contents.
That's in any case, because otherwise you don't know what kind of questions to ask. It always depends also on the data. If it's interview focus group data, you better kind of know what the data is about to ask questions. If it's about open-ended answers from surveys, and you might get 2,000 answers, but then you kind of know the questions to ask. I mean, you don't need to read through all your 2,000 answers at first, because the data is structured. You have an open-ended question from a survey, so you know what that question was, so people only answered that question. It's very different from interview data. So then you can simply, ask, okay, what are the main aspects people have mentioned, or give me all the benefits people have mentioned, or if it's customer review kind of data, what did they say about the service, what did they say about about prices? What did they say about the quality of the product? You know what this is all about. You can also ask questions without having read through, all the 2,000 answers. So it's always depending on the type of data you have. Just to that point of interviewing your data, I wouldn't have like an interview guide ready. It's more like having a very open interview. So you have some questions that if you prepared the research, you know what you're kind of interested in. But then based on the answer, you have follow-up questions that are based on the answer of the AI. So that's why I was a bit hesitant. So that's not something you can have in your interview guide because you don't know. Yeah. So in that sense, it's more like an open interview where you have some main questions to ask, but in the beginning you don't know the follow-ups. But so in that sense, in that dialogue, the follow-up questions are depending on the answer the AI gives you.
Yeah, to prevent human bias, to analyze the data, I think you need to be open for the results that the data show you.
That's also, and one other point also is that, well, the AI assistant is sometimes just not, it's just like a lazy assistant sometimes. I think it's maybe the assistant sometimes is lazy. It's only like, giving you answers of, some interviews, and well, Tom also said something about that, and then can you please look into the interview of Tom? What did he say about it? Yeah. So you have to then send the AI assistant again if you do it like figuratively in a sense, but of course we're talking about machines, but it's easier for people to understand.
You have to keep
it
it
a
on
bit
of
the yeah. It's of course the whole discussion on anthropomorphism. It's a different one, but it makes it easier for people to understand. But sometimes it's also, if you think about, you have an assistant and you tell your assistant to do something, and now in real life, the person comes back with something you haven't asked for, and then that says, yeah, but you told me. And I said, yeah, my question was dumb, or with what I've been asking, I haven't formulated that in a precise enough manner. And that happens also in your dialogue with an AI assistant. If your question has been too broad or too vague, well, that's what you get. Yeah. And then if you realize your question wasn't good, well, then you can also like improve your question, and
So it is like real conversation with assumptions and miscommunication and misunderstanding then.
But yeah, in fact, you can think about that. But that also, because it is not the human component but that makes it also more fun. Because you have that in, so it's not so sterile, and
it is dynamic. Well, you gave a few examples of possible analyses. There's a lot of flexibility given by AI in qualitative research, and you also mentioned it earlier with the articles coming up. But if it's so flexible, a lot of people will need some kind of guideline or some kind of streamlined process or something. So how big is that challenge to get that done, to get all these possible usages of AI in streamlined formats for people?
It really depends on who's using it and what the use case is. If we talk about academics, or if we talk about a market research agency having some interviews, focus groups, and they need to analyze that. For them, it's probably much more straightforward than it is for a PhD student who needs to follow methodology and has some very different criteria. Because behind every methodology, there are some ideas on how you analyze data, and the question is, can we kind of follow the ideas but implement them in the different ways as the new technology gives us the opportunity to do so. So that will take some time until that is kind of worked out. And I think some people were still coding, and that's not going to die out. As still people use, the Post-it notes to analyze qualitative data, or use Word and Excel to do that. So, but then on the more pragmatic end, then people just, they have 20 questions in the interview guidelines, and they have, they don't have open interviews. It's a very structured interview, and they just want answers to their interview. So then there are options like, just upload your interview guide into the app, go question through question, find answers. So that can be, of course, supported within apps by saying, you upload your interview guideline. Then there could be even more support and kind of saying, okay, we train, or we have like a button in the app, and if you don't know yet what you're doing, you click on guided analysis, and then the AI assistant is kind of walking you step by step through what to do. And on the next more assisted level, even if it's somebody is kind of sitting there in front of the data and saying, yeah, I've never done analysis, so I don't know how it works, and like how we can also ask the AI assistant what kind of questions to ask. So in a sense, maybe I'm contradicting myself now a little bit. It's kind of like, you need to know your data in order to ask the right question, which I think will probably get you a higher quality answer. But if you're completely at a loss, you can also just ask your AI, so, here are my interviews, and this is the overall research question, and give me some suggestions of what I can ask. And the AI can do that.
So the flexibility goes even further than its purpose that you use it for. It's also for the expert level of the user that you can you can support basically the level of expertness and the user, and help them out retrieve data. So it's getting also, it's making qualitative research available for more people than also. That's nice.
Yeah, I mean, some people probably said, "Oh God, what analysis that is." But we had quick and dirty analysis. That was never prevented. People just reading through transcripts and picking quotes. But just reading through transcripts and picking some quotes, I think maybe asking an AI to suggest some questions and then follow up on those questions. That then is probably even a step up and giving you better results, even though it's heavily AI guided in that. And of course, it's like I said, you have to kind of see about the use cases and where you want to get. And so it's, probably not something I would advise for a PhD thesis to do, but
no, but there might be people who will benefit from it, and every insight you gain is a gained insight anyway.
Yeah. And then maybe people find it interesting, and then based on that first initial support and seeing example questions you can ask, that might actually help them to get into it.
I can imagine that. Yeah, there's lots of things still to happen, lots of work to do, still a lot of pioneering going on. As a wrap-up question, what are you looking forward to in 2025?
Well, the big topic of 2025 is agents. So that's what everybody gears up to, at least from the technical side of things. You can think about those as kind of the different assistants doing different things, or being specialized or trained for different things. And then even maybe, one assistant is doing one task and turning it into, giving it to another one. And like in a restaurant maybe, where you also have different people doing different things. You have the waitress taking the order of, the food order, and then giving it to the kitchen. And in the kitchen there is also maybe some order how things are done. And, you have the chef who is overseeing everything, but then you have the sous chef, and you have these, the people preparing the vegetables. And I mean, these are all kind of different agents, basically, to prepare your food. And until the food is ready, and then it goes back to the first agent, with
the
waitress or the waiter, and delivering it to your table. So you can kind of think about that. So there's a whole process, and in that process, different people are involved in real life. And now take that to the digital world. And so you don't have just one AI assistant who can help you analyze data, but you have all these different assistants that are trained to do different tasks. There's a lot of talk about automation. So some things might really work fully automated, where one agent is kind of, handing it over to a different agent, and they kind of all know what to do. That is what we're going to see more and more in 25. So everybody's talking 2025 will be the year of the agent. We're not, we haven't, we're not really fully exploited what's possible right now, but it's already something new that is coming and fun and exciting, I think.
Yeah.
And
the roller coaster is still going.
well, I hope it will be less of a roller coaster than it was, but that's but I think that's life is going up and down. And
It sounds exciting, yes. Well, thank you for Dr. Susanne for sharing your inspiring insights with us. I, for one, shall be looking forward to all the developments that we can see in 2025. And maybe we can talk again in a year and see how things have worked out in a year's time.
Having another fireside chat and see,
It's been a pleasure talking to you. Yes. Well, should you want to hear more about this topic, you can still listen to Lisa and Tom's deep dives on AI in qualitative research. And of course, you can subscribe. And if you want to be notified, you can hit the bell, of course. And thank you very much for joining us. Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Susanne.
AI whispers, let's dive in. Qualitative flow, leading the way. Deep insights that weave, patterns emerge for those who believe. Reshape perceptions with each line it crafts. Unveil the stories with algorithms crafts. Qualitative flow, leading the way. Discover the tales in a digital sway.